The company looked sleek on the outside. Glass walls, fancy coffee machines, open desks with bright lights. But inside it felt cold. Not cold like the air, but cold in the way people talked. Everyone was polite, but not warm. Conversations were quick, meetings were rushed, and smiles never reached the eyes. It was a mid-sized tech company, big enough that most people didn't know everyone's name, and small enough that silence stood out. In places like that, quiet people fade into the background. No one noticed if you didn't speak much. And Leo, well, Leo never spoke much at all. He was always there early in the morning, quietly typing away. He didn't join the office banter, or eat lunch in the break room. But if you asked him for help, he'd give it without hesitation. He was kind, respectful, and scary smart. He fixed bugs no one else could, and somehow, nothing ever broke on his projects. Still, people didn't think much of him. He was just the quiet guy in the corner. Easy to miss, easy to forget, until the day he left. And then suddenly no one could stop talking about Leo. Everything started to change when the new boss showed up. His name was Mr. Carr. He wore expensive watches, talked way too loud, and seemed to love hearing his own voice. He walked into every room like he owned it, even if he'd never been there before. Right away he started giving speeches about energy, culture, and being seen. He didn't like people who blended in. He wanted big personalities, and visible passion. He said quiet people made the office feel dull. Most of us just smiled and nodded, trying to stay out of his way. But it didn't take long before he noticed Leo. During a team meeting, while everyone was seated around the long table, Mr. Carr stopped mid-sentence and stared straight at Leo. "You," he said, pointing. "You've been here the whole time, but I don't think I've ever heard your voice." The room went silent. Leo looked up from his notepad, calm as ever. "You need to speak up," Mr. Carr said, smirking. "Be part of the energy, or step out." People shifted in their seats. Some looked at the floor. No one laughed. No one spoke up for him. Leo didn't argue. He just gave a small nod, like he always did, and went back to taking notes. The meeting continued like nothing had happened. But after that day, something in the room felt different. Colder. After that meeting, things started to shift, slowly at first, but enough to notice. Leo stopped getting the big projects. The ones with tight deadlines and lots of visibility were handed to people who spoke more, even if they didn't have Leo's skills. Instead, Leo was given small boring tasks, bug fixes, cleanup work, things that didn't get talked about in meetings. Still, he never complained. He showed up on time, did the work, and finished everything faster than anyone else. Sometimes he helped others when they got stuck, even the people who were promoted ahead of him. Mr. Carr promoted a guy named Troy. Troy was loud, always joking, and constantly talking in meetings. But his code was messy, and things broke often. When they did, someone always had to quietly fix it behind the scenes. That someone was usually Leo. The narrator, watching from across the office, started to notice the pattern. Leo was doing the hardest work, but getting the least credit. Meanwhile, people like Troy were praised for leadership, just because they talked more. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel fair. Leo never looked upset. He stayed calm, focused, and kind, but the narrator couldn't stop thinking. Why did it feel like being quiet was being punished? And how much longer would Leo put up with it? It happened on a Monday morning. Everyone was just settling in when the email came. It was from Leo, simple, short, and polite, just like him. "Thank you for the opportunity. I'm grateful for my time here. My last day will be this Friday." That was it. No complaints, no story, no request for a meeting. Just, goodbye. At first, people were quiet. A few glanced around the room, unsure what to say. Some thought maybe it was a mistake, or maybe there was a longer message somewhere else. But there wasn't. Leo had simply decided to leave. Mr. Carr read the email, then smirked. "Guess he couldn't handle the pressure," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. A few people forced a chuckle, but no one really laughed. By the end of the week, Leo was gone. No party, no goodbye speech. just a clean desk and an empty chair in the corner. But after he left, the office felt different. Quieter, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of quiet that made you feel uneasy, like something important had been taken away. The system started running slower. People began noticing tiny errors in the code. Tasks that used to just get done were suddenly piling up with no one sure how to fix them. It was like Leo had been holding the office together with invisible threads, and now those threads were snapping one by one. The silence he left behind said more than words ever could. It didn't take long for things to start falling apart. Within 48 hours of Leo's exit, problems began showing up everywhere. At first, it was small things. A system not loading, a tool running slower than usual, a report not generating on time. Then it got worse. By Wednesday, one of the company's biggest clients called, angry that their dashboard was showing wrong numbers. Another said they couldn't access their data at all. Someone tried to fix it, but couldn't even figure out where the code was. That's when they realized, Leo had built it. All of it. He hadn't just done his assigned tasks. Leo had been quietly improving systems behind the scenes. He had created shortcuts that made projects run smoother, patched bugs before anyone even noticed them, and cleaned up other people's messes without saying a word. And now that he was gone, everything he held together was coming undone. People panicked. Deadlines were missed. Calls from clients didn't stop. The tech team was flooded with tickets, and nobody had answers. The office that used to run like a machine now felt like it was falling apart piece by piece. The narrator watched it happen in disbelief. She'd known Leo was good. She'd known he was smart and kind, and steady. But she hadn't known just how powerful he really was, not in a loud way, but in a quiet, invisible way that only became clear when he wasn't there anymore. Mr. Carr kept trying to keep things under control. He held meetings, barked orders, blamed bugs and backups. But nothing helped. The truth was simple. Leo wasn't just another quiet employee. He was the backbone of the company, and no one had seen it until it was too late. By the end of the week, HR stepped in. They started digging through files, trying to find documents, instructions, anything that could explain how the systems worked. But there was almost nothing. Leo hadn't left behind notes or manuals, not because he was trying to hide anything, but because no one had ever asked. For years he'd been fixing things quietly, and the company had gotten used to things just working. Now nothing made sense. Tools he'd built had no labels. Files were saved under strange names only Leo understood. His code was clean, but it was like a secret language only he could read. Then former employees began reaching out. A few had seen the news about missed client deadlines and system crashes. One of them sent an email saying, "Leo was the reason I could do my job. He fixed my bugs before I even reported them." Another said, "He was like a guardian angel. Always watching, always helping, and never taking credit." Meanwhile, Mr. Carr grew more frustrated. In a meeting, he blamed the IT team, saying they failed to document processes. But one of the senior developers spoke up, her voice shaking. "Leo was the IT team," she said. "Most of what worked because of him." That was the moment things turned. The higher-ups started paying attention. Clients began pulling out of contracts, saying they couldn't trust a company that didn't understand its own systems. Every day, another piece of the puzzle broke down. Emails flew back and forth. Tension filled the office like smoke. The narrator sat at her desk, watching the chaos, and thought about all the times Leo had quietly fixed things for her. The way he never bragged, never asked for thanks, just helped and moved on. Now the whole company was learning what it meant to lose someone like that, and they were learning it the hard way. By the end of the week, entire departments were shut down. It started with the data team, then the client support team, then marketing. One by one, they were told to pack up and leave. Projects were frozen. Contracts were lost. Meetings were cancelled before they even started. Mr. Carr, who once strutted through the office like he owned it, resigned without a word. No speech, no goodbye. Just a silent exit, like the one he mocked. Rumors spread fast. that the top executives had no idea how much Leo had been doing. Some said he'd saved the company millions without ever asking for more money. Others said he'd warned a few people before leaving, but they hadn't listened. No one knew the full story. They only knew this: Leo had mattered, more than anyone thought. The narrator sat at her desk in the half-empty office, staring at Leo's old chair, still tucked neatly under his desk, just like he left it. It was strange how loud the silence felt now. And even stranger how one quiet man had left a hole no one could fill. Leo was never loud. He didn't brag, he didn't fight for attention. He just did his work, carefully, quietly, and better than anyone else. And now, looking back, the narrator finally understood something she hadn't before. Power doesn't always speak. Sometimes it listens. Sometimes it fixes things in silence. Sometimes it waits until no one is watching, and still chooses to do the right thing. Leo didn't need to shout to prove his worth. He had already shown it, every single day, in ways no one noticed until it was too late. The narrator thought about all the quiet people still working in places like this. Still overlooked, still unseen, and she made herself a promise. To listen better, to notice more, and to never again mistake silence for weakness. Because sometimes, the quiet ones are the ones holding everything up.